Royal Guard horse spins around Horse Guards parade, Royal Guard, King's Guard, London. The wide open space was slowly waking up as the soft light of early day touched the historic buildings around it. The tall stone walls stood firm, carrying centuries of history within them. Every sound felt clear in the cool air, from distant footsteps to the gentle movement of flags above. This place had seen countless ceremonies, parades, and moments of national importance, and today seemed no different at first glance. Tourists began to arrive early, some holding cameras, others simply looking around in awe. Many of them had dreamed of visiting this place for years. They stood behind the marked lines, whispering to each other, careful not to disturb the guards. Children pointed excitedly, while adults explained the meaning of the uniforms and the traditions passed down through generations. The mood was respectful, mixed with curiosity and excitement. At the center of attention stood the Royal Guards, tall and steady, wearing their formal uniforms with perfect posture. Each guard looked forward, focused and calm, trained to remain still no matter what happened around them. Mounted guards sat on strong, well-groomed horses that stood quietly beneath them. The horses were large and powerful, yet calm, their coats shining softly in the light. They had been trained for years to handle crowds, noise, and long hours of duty. One particular guard sat upright on his horse, holding the reins gently but firmly. His expression showed no emotion, as expected from someone in his position. He had prepared for this duty long before the day began. His uniform was neat, his boots polished, and his movements minimal. Everything about him reflected discipline and responsibility. The horse beneath him stood still, its ears moving slightly as it listened to the sounds around it. People often believed that these guards were distant or unfeeling, but that was far from the truth. Behind the stillness was deep focus. The guard was aware of everything around him, from the movement of the crowd to the behavior of his horse. He understood that his role was not only to represent tradition, but also to maintain safety and order in a public space. The horse, too, played an important role. It was not just a display animal but a working partner. The bond between the guard and the horse had been built through long training sessions, early mornings, and countless hours of practice. The horse trusted the rider, and the rider trusted the horse. This connection allowed them to work as one unit, even in busy and unpredictable environments. As the morning went on, more visitors gathered. The crowd slowly grew thicker, and the air filled with quiet conversation and the sound of camera shutters. Some people tried to get the best angle for photos, while others simply watched in silence, impressed by the stillness of the guards. A few tourists read signs explaining the rules, reminding everyone to stay back and behave respectfully. Despite the calm surface, the environment was full of small movements and sounds. Buses passed nearby, footsteps echoed on stone paths, and birds flew overhead. To most people, these were normal city sounds. To a horse, however, each sound carried meaning. Horses were naturally alert animals, always aware of their surroundings. Even with training, they remained sensitive to changes in the environment. The guard remained motionless, but inside, his focus stayed sharp. He adjusted his breathing slightly, keeping himself relaxed. He could feel the horse's steady breathing beneath him. This quiet moment, where nothing unusual happened, was actually the result of years of discipline. Standing still for long periods was not easy, especially with so many people watching, but it was part of the duty. Some tourists noticed the small details. They saw the horse's muscles move slightly under its skin. They noticed how the guard's hands held the reins with control, not tight, not loose. These small signs showed the balance required in such a role. It was not about force, but understanding and trust. The parade ground itself felt like a stage where tradition met daily life. On one side, history stood tall in stone and ceremony. On the other, modern life continued just beyond the gates. This mix made the scene even more powerful. People from all over the world stood together, watching a tradition that had been carried on for generations. For many visitors, this moment was about more than just photos. It was about witnessing discipline, respect, and commitment. They understood that the guards were not performers but active members of a living tradition. Every detail, from posture to timing, mattered. As the minutes passed, nothing seemed out of place. The horse stood calmly, shifting its weight slightly now and then. The guard remained steady, eyes forward. The crowd stayed behind the lines, mostly quiet, sensing the seriousness of the moment. It felt like one of those days that would pass without incident, remembered only as another peaceful visit to a famous location. Yet life often holds unexpected moments, even in the most controlled environments. While everything appeared normal, the story was slowly moving toward a moment that no one in the crowd could predict. The calm atmosphere made the future change even more surprising. What began as a routine morning at Horse Guards Parade was quietly setting the stage for an event that would soon capture everyone's attention. For now, though, the scene remained peaceful. The guard and his horse stood as symbols of tradition and discipline. The crowd watched with admiration, unaware that this ordinary moment was about to become something unforgettable. As the morning continued, the calm feeling at Horse Guards Parade slowly began to change, though most people did not notice it right away. The crowd had grown larger now. More visitors filled the space behind the lines, and the soft sounds of the city became a little louder. Footsteps echoed more often, voices mixed together, and camera clicks became constant. To the people standing there, it all felt normal. To the horse, however, these small changes mattered. The horse beneath the guard lifted its head slightly and moved one ear backward, then forward again. This was not panic, only awareness. Horses were always alert animals by nature. Even after years of training, they still reacted to their surroundings. The horse sensed movement and sound from different directions. A sudden laugh from the crowd, the distant noise of traffic, or a quick movement near the edge of the parade ground could all catch its attention. The guard noticed the small shift immediately. He did not move his head or body, but he felt the change through the reins and the horse's posture. His training taught him to stay calm and let the horse settle naturally. He kept his breathing steady and his hands relaxed. Panic or sudden action would only confuse the animal. Calmness was the strongest tool he had. Nearby, some tourists leaned closer to the line trying to get better photos. A few people pointed toward the horse, whispering to each other. They noticed that the horse looked more alert now, its ears moving often. Still, no one felt worried. The horse was trained and the guard looked completely in control. The horse shifted its weight slightly, adjusting its stance. This was normal behavior, especially during long periods of standing still. Its muscles worked quietly to maintain balance. The guard allowed these small movements, knowing that forcing complete stillness could cause discomfort. The goal was control, not stiffness. A breeze passed through the parade ground, carrying unfamiliar smells from the nearby streets. Horses had a strong sense of smell, and this too added to the horse's awareness. Its nostrils flared slightly as it took in the air. The guard felt the movement but remained steady. He trusted the training they had both received. In the crowd, a group of visitors arrived together, speaking loudly in excitement. They had just entered the area and were unaware of how sound could affect the animals. Their voices echoed across the stone ground. Some people nearby gently reminded them to lower their voices, and they quickly did so. The sound faded, but the moment had already caught the horse's attention. The horse turned its head slightly to one side, scanning the area. The guard applied gentle pressure on the reins, guiding the horse's focus forward again. This was done so smoothly that most people did not even notice. It looked like nothing more than a natural adjustment. In reality, it was a quiet conversation between rider and horse. The guard's face remained calm and emotionless, as expected, but inside, his awareness was sharp. He knew that even the best-trained horse could react if it felt uncertain. His role was to guide the horse through these moments without drawing attention or causing concern among the crowd. The parade ground continued to feel busy yet controlled. People watched with admiration, many unaware of the constant balance happening between calm and alertness. Some children asked their parents why the guards did not move. Others wondered how the horses stayed so still. Few realized how much effort and understanding went into maintaining that image of control. The horse stamped one hoof lightly on the ground, then settled again. This small action was a sign of release, a way for the animal to relax tension. The guard allowed it, knowing it was better than holding stress inside. The horse's breathing slowed slightly, but its ears continued to move, picking up sounds from all directions. A sudden metallic sound echoed from a distance, perhaps from nearby construction or traffic. It was brief but sharp. The horse's muscles tightened for a moment, its neck stiffened and its head lifted higher. This time, a few people noticed and grew curious. Phones were raised and whispers spread through the crowd. The guard responded with patience. He did not pull the reins hard or shift suddenly. Instead, he applied calm, steady guidance. His body remained balanced, sending a message of confidence to the horse. Horses often mirrored the emotions of their riders, and the guard knew this well. By staying calm, he helped the horse feel safe. The horse flicked its tail and took a small step sideways, then stopped. The movement was controlled, not wild. The guard adjusted smoothly, keeping his posture firm and balanced. Years of training showed in this quiet moment. Nothing dramatic had happened yet, but the tension in the air was slowly building. Some tourists stepped back slightly, sensing that something had changed. Others leaned in closer, curious and excited. The atmosphere shifted from calm observation to alert interest. People could feel that the situation was no longer completely routine. The guard's fellow guards nearby remained still as well. Each of them trusted their own horses and training. They were prepared for unexpected moments, even if they rarely occurred. This shared discipline created a strong sense of order across the parade ground. The horse beneath the guard took a deeper breath and shifted again. Its ears locked onto a sound coming from behind. The guard felt it clearly now. The horse was not frightened, but it was unsure. This was the moment where training mattered most. The guard subtly adjusted his grip, guiding the horse's attention without force. Time seemed to slow for a brief moment. The crowd watched closely. Some people held their breath without realizing it. Cameras focused on the horse, sensing that something unusual might happen. The horse paused, muscles tense but controlled. It was listening, thinking, deciding how to respond. This was a natural process for an animal, even one trained for ceremonial duty. The guard remained calm, ready to respond if needed, trusting the bond they shared. What no one knew at that moment was that this quiet tension was leading toward a sudden movement that would surprise everyone watching. The calm morning had slowly transformed into a moment filled with expectation. The horse's awareness had sharpened, and the guard's focus had deepened. Everything was still under control, but the balance was delicate. The next few seconds would turn this ordinary day into something unforgettable. The moment arrived without warning, even though the tension had been slowly building. 1 second, the horse stood alert but still, and the next, it reacted to something only it could fully understand. A sound, a movement, or a sudden shift in its awareness triggered an instant response. The horse spun around sharply, its powerful body turning in a smooth but fast motion. The movement was controlled, yet sudden enough to surprise everyone watching. Gasps filled the air. The crowd stepped back at once, startled by the speed of the action. Cameras shook as people tried to keep focus. Some visitors froze in place, unsure of what to do, while others moved instinctively away from the horse. The quiet respect of the morning was broken by a wave of surprise and excitement. Despite the sudden spin, the guard remained calm. His body stayed balanced, his posture steady, and his hands firm but gentle on the reins. Years of training showed clearly in that moment. While the horse moved quickly, the guard did not panic or lose control. His calm presence sent a strong signal to the horse, reminding it that everything was still safe. The horse's hooves struck the ground in a tight circle as it completed the turn. Dust lifted slightly from the stone surface. The animal's muscles were tense, but its movement was not wild. It was reacting, not acting out. The spin was a natural response, driven by instinct rather than fear. People nearby watched in silence for a brief second, unsure if the situation would escalate. Some parents pulled their children closer. Others raised their phones higher, realizing they were witnessing something rare. This was not a planned performance. It was a real moment, unfolding naturally in front of them. The guard's face remained composed, showing no emotion. He did not shout or make sudden movements. Instead, he applied subtle guidance through the reins and his posture. He leaned slightly, matching the horse's movement, helping it regain balance and direction. This quiet control was almost invisible to the crowd, but it was the key to keeping the situation safe. The horse completed the spin and paused, breathing heavily for a moment. Its ears moved quickly, scanning the surroundings again. It was still alert, still aware, but it had not lost control. The guard spoke softly, barely audible, using a calm tone meant only for the horse. His voice carried reassurance, not command. The crowd slowly realized that the situation was under control. The initial shock faded, replaced by amazement. Many people expected chaos, but instead they saw discipline and trust in action. The guard's calm behavior helped settle not only the horse, but also the people watching. A few seconds passed that felt much longer. The horse shifted its weight, then stood more evenly. The guard adjusted his grip slightly, guiding the horse to face forward again. The movement was slow and deliberate, showing confidence rather than urgency. Some tourists exchanged looks of disbelief. They whispered to each other, trying to understand what they had just seen. Others replayed the moment on their phone screens, already thinking about sharing it later. This unexpected event had turned a routine visit into a memory they would never forget. The horse's breathing gradually slowed. Its muscles relaxed little by little. The guard remained still, allowing the animal time to settle fully. He knew that forcing immediate stillness could increase stress. Patience was essential. Around them, the parade ground fell quiet again. The usual city sounds seemed distant for a moment. Even the crowd grew calmer, sensing that the most intense part had passed. People stood still, watching carefully, respecting the space more than before. The other guards nearby did not move. Their stillness added to the sense of order returning to the scene. They trusted their fellow guard and knew that reacting suddenly could create confusion. This shared discipline kept the situation contained. The horse lifted its head and looked ahead. Its ears slowly returned to a neutral position. The guard gave a final gentle adjustment to the reins, guiding the horse back into its original stance. The animal responded, standing tall and steady once again. Applause did not break out as this was not a show, but the respect in the air was clear. People were impressed, not just by the horse's strength, but by the guard's control and patience. They had witnessed a real moment of teamwork between human and animal. Some visitors later described the moment as intense. Others called it impressive. But most agreed that it showed how much skill was required to perform such duties. What looked simple from a distance was actually the result of deep training and understanding. The guard remained in position, eyes forward, posture unchanged. To someone arriving at that moment, it might have seemed like nothing unusual had happened. Only those who witnessed the spin knew how close the situation had come to becoming something much bigger. The horse stood quietly now, its earlier tension released. It had responded to the guard's calm guidance and regained confidence. This bond, built over time, had made all the difference. As the crowd settled, the atmosphere slowly returned to what it had been before. But for many people, the experience had changed their understanding of what they were watching. The Royal Guard was no longer just a symbol of tradition. It was a living example of discipline, trust, and control in real time. That sudden spin became the moment everyone would remember. It was unexpected, real, and powerful. And even though it lasted only a few seconds, it left a lasting impression on everyone present, marking the day as something truly unforgettable. After the sudden movement, the space slowly found its balance again. The air felt different now, heavier with attention and respect. People were still watching closely, but the shock had passed. What remained was curiosity and admiration. The guard stayed perfectly upright, facing forward as if nothing unusual had happened. His calm presence helped everyone else relax. The horse stood in place, its body still strong and alert, but no longer tense. Its breathing became steady again. The guard allowed the animal a few quiet moments to fully settle. He understood that the horse needed time to feel secure. This patience was part of his training. Nothing was rushed. Everything was done with care. Some people in the crowd whispered softly, sharing their thoughts. A few nodded with appreciation, impressed by how quickly the situation had been handled. Parents quietly explained to their children what they had just seen, turning the moment into a lesson about discipline and responsibility. The children listened with wide eyes, still thinking about the sudden spin. The guard's hands rested calmly on the reins. There was no sign of stress on his face. His posture remained straight and strong. This calm appearance was not an act. It was the result of years of training, learning how to control both body and mind in public situations. He knew that his behavior affected not only the horse, but also the people watching. The horse shifted its weight slightly, then stood still again. Its ears moved once or twice, listening to the environment, but there was no sign of worry. The bond between the guard and the horse had proven itself. Trust had guided them through the unexpected moment. Nearby guards remained steady as well. Their stillness sent a clear message that everything was under control. There was no need for sudden action or concern. The formation stayed strong, maintaining the sense of order that defined the place. As time passed, the crowd slowly returned to its earlier behavior. Cameras were lowered. Conversations softened. People stepped back into proper positions behind the lines. The respectful atmosphere returned, but now it felt deeper. Everyone seemed more aware of the effort behind the tradition they were witnessing. The guard continued his duty without distraction. He did not look around or react to the attention. His focus stayed forward. This discipline reminded everyone that the guard's role was not to entertain, but to serve and protect tradition with dignity. The horse's coat shone under the daylight as it stood tall and calm. Its strength was clear, but so was its obedience. It had responded to guidance rather than fear. This balance between power and control impressed many people watching. Some visitors quietly discussed how difficult it must be to remain calm in such moments. They realized that the guard's training went far beyond standing still. It required understanding animals, managing crowds, and staying composed under pressure. This new understanding changed how they viewed the scene. A gentle breeze passed through the parade ground again. Flags moved softly above, and the sounds of the city returned to a normal rhythm. The moment that had felt so intense just minutes earlier now felt like a memory already settling into history. The guard subtly checked the horse's posture through touch and balance. Everything felt right. The horse stood confidently, ready to continue its duty. There was no need for further correction. Sometimes trust was enough. The crowd's respect grew quietly. No one crossed the line. No one shouted. The shared experience had created a silent agreement to behave carefully. People understood that they were witnessing something real and meaningful. The guards' calm control showed that unexpected moments could be handled without drama. It was not about force or authority, but about understanding and patience. This lesson stayed with many people long after they left the parade ground. Time moved forward just as it always did. The guard remained at his post, doing what he had trained to do. The horse stayed steady beneath him, alert but calm. Together, they formed a powerful image of trust and professionalism. For those who witnessed the moment, it became more than just a memory. It became a reminder that behind every tradition were real people and real animals working together. The scene was no longer just something to photograph. It was something to respect. As the minutes passed, the parade ground returned fully to its calm state. But the impact of what had happened remained in the hearts of the crowd. They had seen how quickly things could change and how important calm leadership was in those moments. The guard continued to stand tall, silent, and focused. The horse stood proudly beneath him. Together, they showed the true strength of discipline and trust. What could have become a problem had instead become a powerful example. The day moved on, but the lesson stayed. In the middle of tradition and ceremony, real life had shown itself. And it had been handled with grace, patience, and quiet strength. As the day slowly moved forward, the moment that had surprised everyone became a quiet story shared among the crowd. People no longer looked tense or curious in the same way. Instead, there was a sense of understanding. What they had witnessed was not a mistake or a failure. It was a real moment of life, handled with calm skill and respect. Visitors stayed longer than they had planned. Some sat on nearby benches, watching the guards with new eyes. Others stood quietly, thinking about what they had seen. The royal guard and the horse were no longer just part of a famous scene. They had become a symbol of trust and control under pressure. The guard remained at his position, steady and focused. His duty continued as it always did. There was no sign that the earlier moment had shaken him. His posture stayed strong, his gaze forward, his movements minimal. This calm presence showed the true meaning of discipline. It was not about never facing challenges, but about how one responds when they appear. The horse stood calmly beneath him, its strength clear in every muscle. It looked relaxed now, confident again in its surroundings. The earlier tension had passed, replaced by quiet awareness. The horse had trusted the guard, and the guard had trusted the horse. Together, they had returned to balance. People in the crowd slowly began to talk about the experience. Some spoke about how quickly everything had happened. Others talked about how calm the guard had remained. Many agreed that it had changed their understanding of what it meant to serve in such a role. It was not just about tradition or appearance. It was about responsibility and control in real situations. A few visitors explained the moment to those who arrived later. They pointed toward the guard and the horse, describing the sudden spin and the calm response. Those listening looked with surprise and respect, trying to imagine the scene. Even without seeing it themselves, they could feel the importance of what had happened. The parade ground returned to its steady rhythm. Guards stood in formation. Horses remained alert but calm. The sounds of the city blended into the background once more. Life moved forward as it always did. But the memory of that moment stayed alive in quiet conversations and thoughtful looks. Some people took one last photo, not just to capture an image, but to remember a feeling. It was the feeling of witnessing real discipline, not staged or rehearsed, but natural and controlled. They knew this was something special, something rare. As time passed, some visitors prepared to leave. They walked away slowly, turning back once or twice for a final look. What they carried with them was more than a picture. It was a lesson about calm strength and quiet leadership. The guard continued his duty until his shift ended. When the time came, he guided the horse away with the same calm confidence. There was no rush, no change in behavior. Everything remained steady and controlled. The bond between rider and horse remained strong, just as it had been during the unexpected moment. Later, as the crowd changed and new visitors arrived, the parade ground continued its daily routine. Many people would come and go without knowing what had happened earlier. Yet the place itself seemed to hold the memory, as if it had quietly added another story to its long history. Those who had witnessed the moment would remember it for years. They would tell friends and family about the day they saw something real at Horse Guard's parade. They would describe the sudden movement, the calm response, and the feeling of respect that followed. The experience reminded them that behind every uniform was a trained individual, and behind every tradition was real effort. It showed that even in the most controlled environments, life could surprise you. What mattered most was how those surprises were handled. The guard and the horse had shown that calm behavior could guide any situation back to balance. There was no need for loud action or visible force. Patience, trust, and understanding were enough. As the sun moved across the sky, light shifted over the stone buildings. Shadows changed slowly. The parade ground remained a place of order and history. The moment that had surprised everyone blended quietly into the day, becoming part of the living story of the place. People who left that day carried a new respect for the role of the Royal Guard. They understood that standing still was not simple. It required focus, strength, and constant awareness. They also understood that the horses were not just symbols, but living partners in duty. The story of the spinning horse became a reminder that even brief moments could leave a lasting impact. It showed that real strength often appeared in calm responses, not dramatic actions. In the end, the day returned to normal. The guards changed shifts. The crowd moved on. The city continued its rhythm, but for those who were there, the memory remained clear. It was not just a story about a horse turning suddenly. It was a story about trust, discipline, and calm leadership. It was about how tradition lived through real people and real moments. That ordinary morning had become unforgettable, not because something went wrong, but because something went right. Calm replaced tension. Control replaced fear. Respect replaced surprise. And long after the parade ground grew quiet again, the lesson stayed alive in the hearts of those who witnessed it. True strength is shown not in perfect moments, but in how we respond when the unexpected appears.